What's going on, you guys? Vordeer92 here. Vordeer to speak the truth. And I want to discuss reasons why I left the activist scene, and why I'm taking a break from the social justice work, political work that I have been doing consistently for 5+ years. And I took a break because my mental and physical health is way more important and valuable than these so-called movements. For one, these movements are going to always exist because unfortunately there is always going to be injustice, inequality, and problems. You know, it's been like this since day one. It's going to be like this when you die. You know, we were born into the mess, we're living in the mess, and when we die, there will still be mess. Okay? Now, it may not be the same mess. There may be some progress. There may be some victories and wins and some justice and equity and equality. But I'm quite positive that everything is not going to just one day be perfect and everyone's going to be happy and free and welcomed and have the resources they need. So, in other words, this is a never-ending saga, a never-ending... So back to what I was saying. I refuse to be a martyr. I refuse to. And that's the problem. So many young people, so many people of color, so many women, so many disenfranchised people become martyrs for movements that essentially don't care about them. And how are you fighting for justice and then killing off the people you're fighting for justice for? It doesn't even make any sense. And it's just ridiculous. Another reason why I left is, I'm just going to be honest, there is no organization whatsoever. And it's hilarious because a lot of times when you're doing social justice work, they call it organizing work. You're not organizing shit. You're running around. You don't have key initiatives, points driven. A lot of the stuff we're doing is not based out of any evidence. People are just running around throwing so-called actions, which essentially are a complete waste of fucking time, because at the end of the day, we're having these marches and protesting and die-ins and what they call planned civil disobedience, and some people will be getting arrested. And the amount of money, time, and energy that's going into planning these so-called actions could actually be going into lobbying elected officials to pass and write legislation that would actually benefit said disenfranchised, marginalized group. But instead of doing that, we're sitting up here marching and protesting and making protest signs and creating new hashtags for fucking Twitter. Okay, and I'm just over it. I'm just completely over it. I'm tired of watching people suffer on a daily basis, literally living without basic necessities and resources they deserve simply for being human and being here. And while we're sitting up thinking that, you know, we're doing a good thing by having a protest. And that's another thing. Stop wasting people's time in this social justice, political justice, organizing work, because I'm so tired of going to marches and rallies. I mean, how many times are we going to have the Million Man March, the Million Women March, the March for Our Lives, Black Lives Matter, coming up with all these stupid ass chants? In the meantime, are you voting? No. Are you running for office? No. Are you writing new legislation that's actually inclusive, that will actually benefit that marginalized, disenfranchised group? No. You know, are we making sure that marginalized, disenfranchised group has food, has water, has clothing, has shelter? Or what are we really doing? And it just hits you. People want to do all these marches, rallies, protests, and actions and hashtag it up so they, on a selfish, level, can feel like they're doing something when they're really not. Okay? It's just ridiculous. Another reason why I left the social justice, political organizing, activist work, and I'm taking a break, is this whole nonprofit industrial complex, which I'm probably going to have to make a longer video discussing, because this is industrial, systemic, oppressive system. And that's a whole nother conversation that needs to really be deciphered and broke down, and so we can really dissect and see what the hell the root cause is, instead of just addressing symptoms 24/7. But back to that nonprofit issue, you have all these nonprofits who are getting millions of dollars a year, and let's really look at, why do we have nonprofits? Because we want to allow rich and wealthy people to avoid paying taxes. So one way to avoid paying taxes is to open up a nonprofit, create a 501c3, and now you're tax exempt, and you can just funnel money back to yourself and then claim that you are somehow helping the community, helping the people, being a philanthropist, being a humanitarian, when really you just don't want to pay your fucking taxes. Okay, let's just really be honest, because again, if the wealthy and the corporations and the businesses would pay their fair share in taxes, we wouldn't have a lot of the issues that we have economically and resourcefully in not only this country, but in this world. But that's a whole nother situation. Back to the nonprofits. So you got these nonprofits who come up with these bogus, unrealistic goals and expectations, and then they go and hire all of these organizers and field coordinators and whatever the hell you want to call them, okay? Because they come up with terms every day, it seems like. So they hire all these people who are supposed to be organizing the masses and working in community to bring people together to fight on the behalf of the people, right? But what ends up really happening is people are working 60, 70 plus hours a week, often underpaid, with little to no benefits. And then if you do get a position doing social justice, political organizing, activist work that does pay a decent living, you're still going to be working 60 to 70 or more hours per week. And when you break that salary down, even if it initially was a good salary, it's no longer a good salary because you're working an additional 20 to 30 plus hours a week that you're not being compensated for because you're salary and not hourly. So at the end, you're actually getting screwed. So bringing it back to why nonprofits are problematic. Again, unrealistic expectations and goals. They either underfund or they overfund for stuff that they know is unrealistic and will not happen. And they don't pay their employees an equitable living, okay, whether that's hourly or salary, and they expect you to work 60 to 70 or more hours a week. So you can see how very quickly with a lot of these nonprofit organizations, their employees end up being burnt out, and burnt out fairly quick, because most people are not going to be able to work 60 to 70 or more hours a week on a consecutive basis. Okay, they're just not. And then on top of that, it's very hilarious because these nonprofits also claim to be the gatekeepers of equity and peace. But in the meantime, are they really pushing equity and peace? How are you being an equitable employer and then having your employees work like slaves 60, 70, 80 plus hours a week on a consecutive basis? And then simultaneously pointing the finger at corporate America and talking about how they're bad and they're evil and they do this and they do that, when you're using the same exact oppressive model and system. It's just hilarious. It's the pot calling the kettle black, literally. So, again, there's just many reasons why I was like, you know what? I'm getting out of this while I have an ounce of my sanity. And then my mental and physical health was literally rapidly deteriorating right before my eyes. I mean, I have a series of gastrointestinal problems. Some of it's hereditary. Some of it is you need to change what you're eating and how you're living. So I needed to do that. Then I have a slew of mental health issues. You know, dealing with stress and depression, PTSD, unchecked trauma, all kinds of things going on. Because that's another thing. When you are a part of multiple marginalized communities and disenfranchised groups, you're constantly dealing with trauma and having your rights and your dignity and your agency ripped away from you on a daily basis, on top of working in a career path that is extremely toxic and volatile and depressive and trauma-based. I mean, when you look at it, a lot of these social justice organizers and political organizers, activists, employees, you might as well be doing social work, because we're literally dealing with trauma on a daily basis, and you don't really get a break from it, because if you're a part of multiple marginalized identities, groups, disenfranchised groups, guess what? Even when you're off work, you're still in that community. So you're still dealing with that issue. So there's never really a break. And it's like, this stuff is ridiculous, and we shouldn't have to do this, and I refuse to do this, and I'm done with it. Okay? And then I look at other people who have been in this industry, in this work. Erica Gardner. Okay? Eric Gardner's daughter. If you remember, Eric Gardner was murdered and choked to death by the New York Police Department. His daughter ended up being catapulted into social justice work and activism on the behalf of her father and many other people who have been murdered by the police in this country. Her father was murdered 4 years ago in 2014. She was dead at the end of 2017 in December at 30 years old from a heart attack. You have to, or I think it was from a heart attack or a stroke. But you have to ask yourself, how does someone who's 30 years old end up dying from a heart attack or a stroke? That is not normal. That should not be happening to a young 30-year-old. But that's what's happening to us on a daily basis. Because at the end of the day, this work is beyond stressful. You have little to no rewards, no victories, and there's not enough compensation and support. So that's looking at her and looking at many others. I refuse to be a martyr for a movement that doesn't care about me, and for people who damn sure don't care about me. So again, I made that conscious decision to take a break, and I'm still on my sabbatical, and being 100% honest and transparent, I don't know if I'm ever going to come back, because again, I value my mental and physical health.